This man is definitely the most skilled killer accountant in the world. As a killer, he has very fine virtues. He always gives a finishing shot, and it must be to the head. But who would have thought such a man is an autistic patient? 9 years later, the sequel to The Accountant has finally been released. The leading man, Christian, was an autistic accountant. He was isolated by his peers due to autism from a young age. However, under his father's training, he and his younger brother, Braxton, learned exceptional skills. As an adult, Christian appeared to be an accountant providing financial audit services to businesses. In secret, however, he was an accountant assassin handling financial information for criminal organizations and certain clients. But Christian donated all the money he earned to the Center for Abnormal Human Research. It was used to help special people like himself. Among them, Christian's exclusive liaison, Justin, had a medical condition that prevented normal speech. She could only communicate through computer-converted speech, but Justin was a top computer genius who could provide strong technical support to Christian. 8 years after the end of the first season, in Los Angeles, the United States, Ray, deputy director of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Bureau, was sitting alone in a lottery center waiting for someone. At this point, Ray was unaware that numerous killers had been lying in wait around him. Before long, the target appeared, a short-haired woman. The killer right away requested instructions from the boss, and received orders to kill both individuals together, and the short-haired woman walked straight up to Ray. In fact, the woman was also a killer who did dirty work for money. Ray asked her out today because he had a job for her. Ray took out a photo and said that this family left their hometown in El Salvador 8 years ago, and illegally entered the US. But the mother, Edith, and the child, Berto, suddenly went missing. Now the father had entrusted Ray to find the whereabouts of his wife and child, but now Ray was basically semi-retired and only took cases that had special significance to himself. So Ray wanted to entrust the case to the short-haired woman.
Do you know what acquired savant syndrome is?
No, but I know there are men outside, the kind that sleep at airport gates in Africa and the Middle East. They didn't follow me.
Ray suddenly realized the danger and hurried to the bathroom. The killers quickly followed, but when Ray entered, he found all the windows sealed. Knowing he was likely to die, he hurriedly hid in a compartment. He wrote a clue on his arm, then went out to fight the killers. Despite his age, Ray was still agile. After taking down one killer, he stabbed another killer in a vital spot with a pen. At the same time, the woman took the opportunity to slip out the door and escaped into the crowd. A sniper lying in wait across the street aimed his gun, but due to the dense traffic, he could never find an opportunity to shoot. In the end, the woman escaped. Then Ray stumbled out into the street, but he wasn't so lucky and was shot dead right away. The next morning, Mary Beth, Ray's favorite pupil and director of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Bureau, hurried to the morgue after receiving the bad news. At this point, the mentor had become a corpse. In her grief, Mary Beth discovered the last words on Ray's arm, which read "Find the accountant." Naturally, it referred to the accountant assassin, Christian. At this time, Christian was trying to integrate into normal life. Although Christian earned a lot of money, he didn't like to live in a fixed residence, so he bought a motorhome and traveled around all year round. Today, on Justin's advice, he was preparing for a blind date. With his outstanding appearance and successful person's attire, the women present were even willing to queue up to go on a blind date with him. But Christian didn't seem to be good at chatting with women.
I thought I saw an Airstream in one of your photos?
Yes, that's my home. That's where I live.
Oh, permanent.
Well, as long as I'm alive.
How about something else? Kids?
You're 44?
45.
Well, suppose anything's possible.
In the end, all the other men successfully paired up, and only he was alone. On the other side, Mary Beth was still investigating Ray's death. She first found the landlord and his wife, and they entered the house rented by Ray together. Soon Mary Beth discovered that Ray seemed to be investigating a series of homicides before his death. Then Mary Beth found a business card in the notebook, with Christian's name written on the back. Mary Beth concluded that something was wrong, so she rented the house right away from the homeowner. To continue the investigation, that night, Mary Beth dialed the number according to the card, and Justin answered the phone. For safety, Justin would always pretend not to know Christian for unfamiliar clients. Unexpectedly, Mary Beth mentioned the matter of Ray's murder, and Ray and Christian had a deep relationship. Back then, Ray relied on the help of Christian and Justin to gradually take the position of deputy director, so Justin naturally also knew the relationship between the two. She realized the seriousness of the matter right away. The next day, the sniper who failed the mission found the employer. To report the situation, this person was Burke, the leader of the local human trafficking organization. After learning the details, Burke was furious. Can't four professional killers even take down one woman?
Relax, boss. She don't remember you.
Burke mentioned an incident from a few years ago. That day, when he was negotiating with several gang leaders, the woman suddenly broke in and accurately shot several people. She spared Burke's life because she didn't know him, but Burke guessed her identity through the woman's tattoo. He knew that the other party must have lost her memory, otherwise, she would definitely not have spared him. To prevent the woman from recovering her memory and coming to kill him, Burke decided to strike first. Since it was unsuccessful once, try again. So Burke sent the sniper to kill the woman again. At the same time, Mary Beth came to the parking lot as guided by Justin. She saw a smashed stone pier that was identical to the one in Ray's photo. Just as she was carefully investigating, Christian appeared like a ghost. Mary Beth became alerted once. She had dealt with Christian before, knowing that the other party's strength was unfathomable. Christian openly walked over and asked Mary Beth what she wanted from him. Mary Beth took Christian back to Ray's residence. The walls of the room were covered with information. Christian quickly scanned the information and recognized the identities of many of the deceased right away. Then his gaze fell on a photo of a boy behind a wire fence. Christian pieced together the scattered information around them. It was clear that this family of three was the key to solving the mystery. Based on the gang tattoo on the man's arm, Christian thought the family used to live in Mexico, probably entering the US illegally by train, and the boy trapped by the wire fence was the grown-up boy in the photo. Christian then analyzed the woman in the photo and found a child support declaration document showing her name was Edith, but strangely, Edith's tax records were clearly problematic, and the document also mentioned that Edith had a father. If Edith really had a father, why didn't she seek refuge with him? To investigate the truth, the two went to the processing plant where Edith had worked, to ask the boss some questions, such as why Edith would arbitrarily give up the tax break she was entitled to, but the boss claimed not to know Edith. Christian saw right away that the boss's sales figures were problematic. There was illegal income in the factory's profits. The boss became furious on the spot, threatening Christian to stop talking nonsense and calling in two enforcers. However, Christian easily knocked down the enforcers, then controlled the boss and used some painful tactics to force him to reveal where the money came from. In the end, the boss had to admit that he provided girls for pimps.
I know where they use a motel or two. Please.
Who's them?
I don't know. Ask one of the girls.
What motel? What motel?
City Center downtown.
Who's your contact?
Please, no.
Who's your contact? Who's your contact?
Tomas!
Seeing that no more clues could be obtained, Christian and Mary Beth left the processing plant. Mary Beth was dissatisfied with Christian's violent methods and warned him not to act recklessly again. Mary Beth planned to apply for support from the FBI, but Christian thought of a more suitable helper, his younger brother Braxton, who was currently also working as a hitman for hire. At this point, Braxton was eating and chatting with a girl. He was annoyed to receive a call from Christian, asking him to help right away. The brothers hadn't seen each other in 8 years since their last meeting, and Christian hadn't even taken the initiative to call during that time. Now he was asking for help out of the blue, but Braxton also knew that for Christian, who suffered from autism, maintaining a relationship was very difficult, so he just grumbled verbally but was still willing to help his brother in his heart. But the girl was terrified, thinking Braxton was going to harm her, and hurriedly pleaded for mercy in a panic. Braxton just felt confused.
Have a conversation. You kind of suck as a conversationalist. I mean, I know there's a language barrier, but holy shit, it's not so fucking confusing what I'm saying to you.
On the other side, Christian and Mary Beth were already waiting at the entrance of a motel. Christian casually mentioned that his brother often got angry with him for no reason. Mary Beth probably guessed why, and told Christian to remember to thank his brother later. Shortly after, Braxton drove to the motel. Upon learning that Mary Beth was the director of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Bureau, Braxton quickly pulled his brother aside and wondered if he had lost his mind. After all, they weren't good people. How dare they act with federal agents? But Christian's simple thank you let Brighton agree happily. Then Braxton stuffed a stack of money into the motel receptionist's hand, saying he wanted to find 3 dancers to have fun with. They asked Mary Beth to wait outside, while Christian and Braxton went into the room to lie in wait. Soon 3 dancers arrived at the room on time. After giving them the money, Braxton asked to meet the pimp, but as soon as he said this, the dancers' expressions changed. 2 of the dancers realized it was a trap, and quickly picked up their bags and ran away. The remaining dancer also wanted the pimp to be punished, but the money wasn't enough for her to risk her life. Braxton asked Christian to take out 2 more rolls of banknotes, and the dancer finally dialed the pimp's number, pretending to be bullied by a man and asking for help. After the call, the dancer suddenly said she had no children. Before the two could react, she opened the door and left. At this time, Mary Beth made a new discovery. Technicians had found external surveillance footage of the lottery center when Ray was killed, but the footage was too cluttered with people coming and going to distinguish who the killer was or who Ray was meeting. The technicians also told Mary Beth that the police had found Edith's father, but he had been shot and killed. Investigations revealed he wasn't Edith's father at all, but a member of a human trafficking organization who had smuggled Edith's family into the U.S. years earlier and killed Edith's husband when extortion failed. Just then, the pimp arrived at the motel. He tried to take the opportunity to blackmail them, but was punched downstairs by Braxton. The brothers stuffed the unconscious pimp into Mary Beth's trunk right away. Mary Beth was terrified and shouted that this was kidnapping, but Christian calmly called Justin, asking her to turn all traffic lights along the route to green, and arranging for someone to make a false police report to disperse the police. In this way, the three successfully returned to Ray's residence. Mary Beth was eager to check the surveillance footage for clues, but Christian had a better idea. He asked Justin to gather the special gifted teenagers from the Research Institute to jointly analyze the surveillance footage near the lottery center. After collecting more surveillance videos and filtering through them, they identified an extremely calm woman who stood out from the panicked crowd around her. But the woman was very cunning, deliberately keeping her head down to avoid cameras all the way. However, the teenagers made an unexpected discovery. A woman across the way was taking a selfie under Justin's precise coordination. The children divided tasks to hack into the woman's computer, constantly making noises to lure her away, then took the opportunity to search her photo album, and finally found the selfie. After restoring and enlarging the photo, they discovered the woman was a top killer globally wanted by the FBI, and no one knew her real name. Mary Beth was completely confused. She couldn't understand why Ray would ask such a dangerous person to search for someone. Mary Beth guessed that all the people on the wall had been killed by that woman.
I'm just saying she definitely didn't kill that one or that one right there, so.
How do you know that?
Just kind of throwing it out there, that's all.
But Mary Beth wasn't stupid. She realized right away those were Braxton's handiwork. Mary Beth cursed the brothers as lunatics and turned to leave in her car, but then remembered the pimp in the trunk and turned back at once, saying she would hand him over to the prosecutor. Mary Beth also warned Christian that, if the two were still there when she returned, he shouldn't blame her for being harsh. Soon Mary Beth and the prosecutor began interrogating the pimp. They showed him photos of the bodies of human trafficking organization members, reminding him that this man and his lawyer had both been killed. After all, in the eyes of the mastermind, they were all expendable. This completely broke the pimp's psychological defense, and he admitted to having been trafficking women into the U.S. from various places. Mary Beth took the opportunity to show him the family photo, and the pimp recognized Edith right away. At the time, Edith had been sold as a maid, but 5 years ago, she was in a car accident and sent to the hospital, after which there was no news. But just as the pimp was about to reveal key clues, a sniper working for Burke positioned across the building quickly killed the pimp and his lawyer. Afterward, the sniper swiftly packed up and vanished without a trace. The news quickly reached Christian, and Justin also found out that Edith had been taken to University Hospital Center after the car accident. Christian asked Justin to check Edith's old hospital records. After hanging up, he kept wondering about the dancer's strange words. What did "I have no children" really mean? But Braxton was getting restless. After holding back for a long time, he finally asked, "Haven't seen each other in 8 years. Don't you miss me at all?"
I spent years looking for you. I was just trying to track you down, but you don't look for me at all. And I finally find you. You would come and find me soon, and then you just disappeared again. I guess
You had my phone number.
Christian couldn't answer such a question directly. He just repeated that this was his personality. Braxton knew his brother was autistic and didn't press further, instead dragging him to a bar to relax. Christian noticed a dynamic woman, who also felt his gaze and took the initiative to ask if he wanted to request a song. Christian had no idea how to respond and stammered, making the woman angry and leaving. Braxton complained that his brother had missed an easy romantic opportunity. While the brothers were arguing, the woman had started dancing to the music. Christian was instantly attracted and went over to imitate her dancing. Braxton happily cheered for his brother from the audience. At the end of the song, the woman hugged Christian with a smile, but then a man picked a fight. warning Christian not to touch his girlfriend. The woman explained they had no connection, but the man persisted and tried to start a fight. Braxton wouldn't let his brother be bullied. He rushed up and threw the man and his lackeys out of the bar. Finally, the brothers left coolly, and Christian even got the woman's number. While the brothers were having fun, Mary Beth was still chasing clues. She found the hospital where Edith had been treated after the car accident, and learned a shocking truth from the attending physician. The car accident hadn't only caused Edith to fracture and disfigure, but also led to amnesia. Before the repair surgery, the doctor had Edith undergo neurorehabilitation therapy and unexpectedly found that the brain injury had instead activated her brain potential. The doctor told Mary Beth the term, acquired savant syndrome. In extremely rare cases, victims of blunt trauma can develop astonishing abilities in their brains. Edith had activated her frontal and parietal cortices, not only becoming smarter but also extremely agile and aggressive. One night, Edith knocked out the security guard and escaped, disappearing without a trace since then. However, the doctor didn't realize his computer had been hacked, and all data had been sent to Christian. At the same time, Braxton was on the phone with his boss. In fact, Braxton knew the woman's identity because she also took orders from the boss, but the boss refused to reveal her identity, and instead asked Braxton to check out a new assassination mission. When the photo came through, the target was actually Mary Beth. Braxton was right away torn and could only suppress the matter for now. Late at night, Christian was still staring at the photo, pondering the dancer's words. Could it be that the boy in the photo isn't in school but in prison? Suddenly, Christian heard Braxton's phone notification and saw that the kill order for Mary Beth had been reassigned to someone else. He right away drove to save her. At the same time, Justin called Christian to say that Ray had been killed, because he'd discovered Edith's trail. It turned out the short-haired female killer was Edith. Meanwhile, Edith had secretly entered Ray's house to carry out the assassination mission, but Mary Beth had received an early warning from Justin, and hid in the dark to try to subdue her. But Mary Beth underestimated her opponent's strength. Edith easily broke free and pushed Mary Beth back step by step. In the chaos, Mary Beth grabbed a knife from the ground but was overpowered by Edith, who drove the blade into her own abdomen. Edith accidentally looked up, and the family photo on the wall instantly stabbed her eyes. 8 years of sealed memories flooded back. She finally remembered she was Edith. Back then, the family had risked everything to enter illegally to the US, only to be targeted by human traffickers. The child was forcibly taken away. Burke carved a tattoo on her ankle as a mark, and shot her husband dead in front of her, completely shattering her hopes. Later, Edith found an opportunity to escape in a parking lot. When she drove into a stone pier and rushed out, she was in a car accident, which caused her to lose all her memories. At the moment Edith regained her memory, Christian rushed into the room with a gun. He finally understood the deep meaning of the dancer's words. It turned out that the children were all hidden in the human trafficker's lair, including Edith's son. This news panicked Edith, and she turned to leave through the back door. Christian quickly helped Mary Beth press the wound to stop the bleeding. On the other side, the news of the failed assassination reached Burke. He called the boss of the killer organization in a rage, asking that Mary Beth must be killed. But the boss calmly said that the contract would only be invalid when the target died or the client was finished. But Burke wasn't reassured at all, so he ordered the sniper to destroy all evidence, to prevent the federal government from tracing him. Of course, this included the children. No one should be left alive. At the same time, Christian was packing the RV. He was going to drive to the human trafficker's lair, but his younger brother advised him not to take the risk.
All this is about the goddamn kid in the picture, right? You think he's like you?
Yes, he's alone in Juarez. Do you even
How
care?
do you know that? How do you know he's like you? You're so weird, Chris. You get these ideas in your head and you just upset.
Although Braxton grumbled at his brother, when Christian was about to set off, he still got into the passenger seat. Early the next morning, the children from the research institute hacked into a drone to scout, and found that the human traffickers were driving the children onto a bus, and a huge pit was being dug next to it. Justin right away understood that this was to silence them. She quickly notified Christian that it would be too late if they delayed. After speaking, Justin quickly turned off the computer, fearing that the children behind her would see the bloody scene, and Christian and Braxton realized the urgency of the matter, and quickly checked their weapons and equipment. Before the action, Christian suddenly said thank you seriously, which warmed Braxton's heart and made him realize that his brother had really changed. But now saving people was a priority. Without saying more, the two jumped into the car and rushed to the human trafficker's lair. Just as they were about to approach the bus, Braxton leaned out and fired. He first used a grenade to blast a gap, then accurately killed the perimeter guards. The brothers drove at full speed, and crashed the car into the wooden house's door. The enemies who reacted fired wildly but found that the car was already empty. Christian and Braxton jumped out of the car in advance, and were hiding behind cover to fight back. In the chaos, Christian saw the sniper take Edith's son onto a school bus and escape. He was so anxious that he became more and more ruthless, but the enemy's firepower was still too strong. The brothers threw smoke bombs, and rushed up to kill the enemies through the smoke. Unexpectedly, the sniper who had left by car took the opportunity to shoot Braxton with a machine gun. Fortunately, the bulletproof vest blocked it and didn't hit a vital part. But Braxton knew time was urgent, so he asked Christian to chase the school bus to save the children, and stayed behind to cover him. Christian didn't hesitate to leave right away, while Braxton rushed out to fight the enemies desperately. Although he was skilled, he had just been shot, so he was quickly knocked to the ground by a strong man. Just as Braxton was preparing to face death, Christian drove back in a pickup truck. He picked up his brother, and continued to chase the school bus. At this time, the children were being driven into the pit one by one. Christian slammed on the gas pedal and finally arrived at the scene. Before the tragedy happened, Christian asked Braxton to steady the steering wheel, while he picked up the gun and quickly killed the surrounding enemies. Seeing the bad situation, the sniper right away grabbed Edith's son as a hostage, trying to force the brothers to surrender, but unexpectedly, the brothers had a tacit cooperation and shot at the same time. The sniper didn't have time to react and was killed on the spot. After the crisis was resolved, the brothers drove the school bus to send the children home, and Braxton even found his dream pet on the way. On the other side, Justin contacted the boss of the killer organization, revealed all his background, and threatened him to cancel the hunt for Mary Beth. Then she told Edith where Burke was hiding, so when Burke came out after taking a shower, he saw Edith sitting on his bed. He was so scared that he ran away. But how could he escape? Not long after, Mary Beth recovered from her injuries, and led the FBI to seal the human trafficking processing plant, completely destroying the criminal den. And in the research institute, a bed for Edith's son had been prepared in advance, where he would start a new life. At this time, Christian and Braxton were driving the children home. For the first time, Christian took the initiative to ask his brother about his future plans.
I made a reservation at an RV park at the Chattahoochee for after we drive up Alberto. I thought we could go hiking there.
This made Braxton overjoyed, and he quickly agreed. In this way, the brothers no longer dwelled on past grievances, and prepared to start a brand new life. And so the story ends. The Accountant 2 tells a new story of Christian, the autistic accountant assassin. But it isn't as good overall as the first one. In the first film, Christian had a striking contrast. He was autistic but could kill precisely using mathematical logic, like a non-human judge, appearing very sharp. But in the second film, he starts to act normal. Although these changes aim to show his growth, they also make him lose his most unique sense of alienation, becoming more and more like a generic action movie hero. And younger brother Braxton is less three-dimensional than in the first film. In the first film, his conflict with Christian was complex, but in the second, he is reduced to a tough-talking but soft-hearted enforcer, with no deeper motivations beyond fighting and complaining about his brother. The brotherly bond also becomes a plot device. For example, staying behind to save his brother feels formulaic. Overall, the second film is like a dish. Although the ingredients are similar to the first, the chef didn't master the timing, so the taste is a bit off. If you enjoy brotherly bonds and action scenes, this film is acceptable. But if you're looking for deeper content, the first one is more satisfying. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to it.